He's Omar, I'm Majid, we're the substitutes, and today we are talking VVD, TAA, and no, they are not STDs. Um, there's been a lot of debate about both of them this year, Omar. Both of them have gone from world class elite status to overrated and junk bond status. Let's take each one case by case. Let's start with VVD. I think he's a little clearer cut, in my opinion, but let's hear what you have to say. Is VVD elite or overrated?
So I think there are things that you need to consider with VVD. If you want a short answer from me, he's elite, right? But I also think that he hasn't been the same player since that injury. Since that horror injury that he suffered at Everton, he's come back and he came back decently. He played well, but since the Real Madrid game, the Champions League final, he started making mistakes, and he's made a list of mistakes, actually. He's made it in that Madrid game. This season, he was bullied by Fulham. At United, he tried to use his superpowers to stop Sancho. Against Napoli, he was awful. And against Brighton, he made the mistake that led to the equalizer. He turned it around, and Liverpool fans are getting quite maybe carried away with one game against Holland. And look, it is Holland, so you have to give him credit where it's due. He played exceptionally well against him, but consistency is what BVD needs. Um, he's elite, but I think you have to give him a little bit of time.
Are his issues mental or physical then?
It could be both, I mean, when you have an injury and you're out for that long, um, you might you might be a bit slow in terms of how to react, how to defend. In terms of any physical issues, we don't know. He's 30 years old now, I think. We don't know the impact that that's had on his body, how he can maneuver, how he can move. Like, has it affected his flexibility, his agility? It's up in the air, but when you go against Haaland and you you basically put him in your pocket, then yeah, I think that you have a genuine chance to show that you can go back to a level that you've shown previously. So it's hard to say right now. He just needs to start showing consistency.
I agree. I think Virgil van Dijk he's proven 3 seasons of undeniable world class elite play. 3 seasons on the trot. And I think anytime you do 3 seasons on the trot, the old days was you had to put 10 years of solid service to your club and then you're a club legend. That soon became closer to like as long as you can do anywhere from 5 to 7 years, you're good to go, you're club legend, you did your time. I think we now need to look at a much more truncated time period, and if you do manage 3 years of world-class status in which you do have titles and trophies to show for it, you have to, like, he was elite at one point. That injury comes in, and there's the like mental fatigue and just the final, the Madrid final. These things start adding up at some point. I don't know. Do you think he's going to rediscover that form? Do you think he can rediscover that form, or halas, this was the peak, and we'll get some good years out of him, but we're not gonna see, that.
That's really hard to say, and I don't want to use the United example because I get told off for it, but it's something that applies. Um, you could okay, I'll use Arsenal. Aaron Ramsey. He had a horrific leg break, and it took him a long time. It took him 2 years actually, and that's how usually how long it takes to come back from an injury. Usually that first year, you're learning the ropes. People don't give you time as well, and then that second year again, he didn't play that well, but in year three, he really picked it up, and he was playing phenomenally for Arsenal. You could look at Luke Shaw. The guy had a double leg break. He got back. I think with VBD, I think you just have to give him time. Time will tell whether he can actually, go back to those levels. I hope for his sake he does, because I don't like, like for elite players, you'd never want to see them not be able to hit their peak. But I mean, fingers crossed for him. I hope he wins Player of the Year every year and never wins another trophy.
So now let's move to TAA, Trent Alexander-Arnold then.
Hmm.
Um, is TAA elite or overrated?
Well, look, I think first of all, let me say it's really funny to see him make this many mistakes. For a guy who constantly starts standing up to people, kicking people, pushing them over. Like it's nice to finally see him being humbled a little bit. That's just my personal view of the matter, right? At 22 years old, they gave him a lot of they said that he basically won football, apparently. Like last season was the only season that he won two trophies in one season, that famous domestic double, cup double, sorry. Let me get that clear. Um, he's known to be defensively liable. Offensively, he is amazing. And here's where I think the distinction is, right? VVD can play in a bad team, but he can probably make players better around him. Right? Like he can make his center back, he can cover for his center back, he can cover for his right back or left back. Right? That's what I think is the mark of like an elite player, right? When I look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, he needs Henderson. He needs a player like Van Dijk or an elite defender like Fabinho in there to make him better. Right now, he's still very, very young. Right, he can still learn, but the mistakes that he's made so far this season, I think he was liable for all four goals against Napoli. He was had a mistake against United. He had a horror show against Brighton. And he was also at fault for the goal in the Champions League final, arguably. Like these are a lot of mistakes that he's made. Um, right now, I would think that he's a really good player offensively, but there's a part of this game that is starting to be quite exposed.
Elite or overrated?
Oof. Right now, I'd say overrated.
Like there was like a 5 minute preamble.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry. I thought it was clear in what in how I was saying it. Like I just wanted to rant about this guy for a long time.
no, that's fair because he is sort of that mystery in a puzzle inside an enigma, inside a
Enigma.
conundrum kind of thing. Like, he's so good going forward, but he's so bad going backwards. And he's like, the better he gets going forward, the worse he seems to get going backwards. Like, there's more and
Yeah.
more mistakes keep piling up, but he also does make it up on the other end, arguably. Um, for me, I look at him and I'm like, what you need to do, bro, is like watch Danny Alves. That guy is what you like. You could be better than Danny Alves, but he is the technically on both ends. He is what you have to become. Right now, you are closer, in my opinion, to let's get back to Old Trafford, Luke Shaw and Raphael, guys who are very good going forward, but their liabilities going back. Raphael, for 7 years, he played at United. He was always on the cusp of like, yo, this guy's gonna be what Danny Alves became, right? And I feel that's the same with TAA, Danny. Year in year out, when you're saying that yo, your ceiling's still like you haven't gone, like you're nowhere near it, and there's no improvement though. It doesn't even seem like he's trying to improve defensively. He almost seems like he's checked out defensively. And I absolutely get what, and that's the main thing about him is your point about Trent needs defensive cover, like solid defensive cover to make up for his minuses going backwards. He'll get you something going forward, but you need to have VVD before you have Trent Alexander. Does that make sense?
It does, and isn't that for me, isn't that the sign of someone who isn't like elite world class? Like when you have, look, you can be great at something like, but I think like we threw out terms like world class, elite, like too easily, right? He's still very young. He's 22 years old, right? Let's at least get that right. But like when you have a deficiency like this and you need people to cover for you, um, I think that's very telling. He might work well in a system, right? And if his system right now is just all we need from you is to defend 30% of the time and 100% of the time you go forward, right? Like that's the output that we want from you, right? Like, and yeah, fine, sorry for my math there, but like still, like, that's essentially what was being asked of Liverpool. They always seem to give more than 100%. Like it was insane. But he just doesn't defend. What I saw against Napoli, he was just a pedestrian. He wasn't tracking back. These are basics.
And that's why, like, yes, he's 22, he's young, but he's also really old as a professional. He's been in there for a
5
while.
years.
He's a veteran. Like, he's won titles and trophies. So yes, he is young. You're right. I cut him slack. But when you're giving 4 goals to Napoli, and it's not, again, my point was not the 4 goals. Give 100 goals in. If the guy scores a goal, that's a different thing. If Haaland is scoring, you're playing Haaland and he's scoring, that's a different thing. But when you're making mistakes, a la Maguire style, like when you're the one
Mm,
who's causing goals to go in, you need to sit back and look. And I don't think Trent Alexander, that's what I'm saying, is even at 22, the older he's getting, the more entrenched he seems to become in his style. Whereas you need to break out of that and grow and develop and change your game. Maybe rein in your attacking senses and play more defensive. Go talk to Virgil and say, "Hey, guy, give me one-on-one lessons. Like, what am I doing wrong? Something's clearly going wrong." Because
mm,
Liverpool, every time an opponent gets the ball this time, if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd be every time. It's like United last year. Every time you see an attacking team, you're like, there's a goal. There's a chance of a goal. Like 40, 50, 60%. It should be 0.1%. It's 40, 50, 60. That's very concerning. And it's the same components. VVD, I'll still give him injury and age and stuff like that. But Trent Alexander, for me, he is overrated right now. He's flashes of elite play, but overall overrated because you were talking about a defender who can't defend.
exactly. And look, that again, I just go back to the point. When you say he has flashes of elite play, he has flashes of great offensive play, like incredible offensive play. But when you can't defend, like a lot of Liverpool fans would say, "Oh, the right back role is changing, and he doesn't need to defend as much." Well, clearly he does because he is given away quite a lot. So personally, this is the big difference between VVD and TAA for me. I think VVD can play and fine, he's not 100% on form, but when he was, he could play in a bad team, and he would make lesser players really, really good. Whereas I don't think Trent has that effect. If he's not on song, I think he's a liability for the rest of the team, and he makes other players weaker. So he really needs to improve that part of his game.
And with that, what do you guys think? Is Virgil van Dijk overrated or elite? Is Trent Alexander overrated elite? Are Liverpool ever gonna bounce back? Inshallah not. For us, the substitutes, take care. Have a good one. Peace, peace.